Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode I'm joined by co-host Greg Ramsey. From one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time comes a classic album featuring tracks that set the tone for a new decade, inspiring countless bands that came afterward and defining its creators for generations to come. We're talking about Led Zeppelin IV. Led Zeppelin IV, also known as Zoso, was released on November 8, 1971. It was the fourth studio album from the band, which featured Robert Plant on lead vocal, Jimmy Page on guitar, John Paul Jones on bass, and John Bonham on drums. Page also produced the album, with acclaimed producer Andy Johns working as the sound engineer. The album was recorded between December of 1970 and February of 1971 at the famous Headley Grange Country House and Recording Studio in Hayley, Hampshire, England. The laid-back setting gave Zeppelin the opportunity to relax and explore different sounds, as well as styles, for the record. Following lukewarm reviews from critics over the previous effort, Led Zeppelin III, the band decided that the fourth album would be untitled, so as not to draw comparisons to the ones that came before it. The fourth record was instead defined by 4 different symbols chosen by each band member. For the first time in Zeppelin's history, they were joined by guest musicians on the record, including pianist Ian Stewart from the Rolling Stones and Fairport Convention's Sandy Denny. Led Zeppelin IV featured 8 career-defining tracks from the band, including Rock and Roll and When the Levee Breaks. The most iconic song from the album is Stairway to Heaven, though the band refused to release the song as a single, it nevertheless became the centerpiece for their live shows upon release of the album. 3 other songs from the Hayley Grange sessions, Down by the Seaside, Boogie with Stu, and Night Flight, did not make the cut and instead were released 4 years later on Zeppelin's double album, Physical Graffiti. Led Zeppelin was not happy with the first mix of the album in early 1971, and after the tour that followed, Page mixed the album again in July of the same year. The band's decision to leave the record untitled and with no writing on the cover delayed the album even longer until its eventual release in November. Led Zeppelin IV became the band's most commercially successful record, selling over 23 million copies worldwide, making it the 5th best-selling album of all time. It is widely considered by fans, critics, and the record industry at large as one of the best records ever made. And that's the lowdown on Led Zeppelin IV. Led Zeppelin IV. If I told you that this was all my idea, I'd be lying. I will give credit where credit's due. I actually got the inspiration to do this episode from Chris Jericho's podcast. Sometimes he will do deep dives on albums. He'll have special guests on, things of that nature. He recently did Back in Black because this year marks the 35th anniversary. 35th or 40th, something like that. It's a pretty big number. And it was a very entertaining show. And I thought, hey, we could totally do that. So we picked an album and we said, hey, this will be great. So here we are. Dude, for me, this album is the quintessential rock and roll record. There's so much happening here. So much good stuff. Man, tell me about Led Zeppelin IV. Like, what's your thoughts overall on this album before we really get started here?
As you said, the quintessential rock album from, in my opinion, the quintessential rock and roll band in history. These 4 guys, they were all stars. I mean, in any other bands, these guys could have been the face of that band. But, I mean, it was like a super group, in my opinion. We talk about super groups today, putting different members of different bands together to form a super group. And this was it. Led Zeppelin, went down in history. In a simple word, they were awesome.
Yes, and of course Zeppelin came from the remnants of the Yardbirds. Jimmy Page, actually Jeff Beck was with the group first, I believe, and Jimmy Page joined the group. He was such a creator and such a, I think controller is the wrong word, but he just knew what he wanted to do. And he was becoming a guru of sorts and just a very, like I said, a very creative guy, trying different things, experimenting with new sounds. And he was all about moving the band forward. And when it became obvious that the lead singer at the time said, I think I'm getting out of the business. I think I'm done. Basically, Page kind of inherited the Yardbirds. He kind of inherited the whole thing. And so when the band sort of came to an end, that became the foundation for what would later become Led Zeppelin. And the fact that Page is such a phenomenon in his own right. And man, we've talked before about legendary guitarists. You know, modern day, you talk about Joe Satriani and Slash. You got to talk about Eddie Van Halen. You got to talk, of course, about Hendrix, the master. You know, Clapton, B.B. King to a large degree. Even Freddie King and Albert King, some of the best blues guitarists of all time. And, you know, for me, Page is by far one of the best, if not the best, rock and roll guitarists maybe that I've ever heard. His touch, his tone. And dude, the word experimentation is big with this guy because he was not afraid to try different things. I mean, the first time we saw him with a violin bow playing Kashmir on stage, and of course we're not as old as we sound, folks. A lot of that footage was shot when we were kids, like small kids, you know. But later on in life, you know, you're looking back at that footage, you're like, is he playing a violin bow? Like when you first discovered that, you're like, dude, this guy's crazy. So yeah, man, Led Zeppelin IV was along the same lines. Again, experimentation, trying new things, putting yourself out there. Man, what a time this must have been to be a rock and roll fan. I often think I was born a little bit too late in terms of my musical taste and my overall mood and stuff. Dude, imagine being a teenager when Led Zeppelin IV came out, man. Can you just wrap your head around that for a second?
Oh yeah, I can imagine. You know, a lot of people in the music industry looked up to these guys. They wanted to be like them. And you know, we've already done a podcast on Metallica, and I talked a little bit about Dave Mustaine. He really revered Jimmy Page. I think that's, you know, one of the reasons he got into the music business. And he even got to share an award with him one time for, you know, some kind of guitarist award. I mean, what an honor, you know. He said it was just one of the greatest experiences of his life just to meet Page, and I'm sure he probably got to jam with him a little bit. That must have been awesome. So yeah, I can see what it might have been like to have been a teenager at the time. It must have been, you know, just fabulous.
Crazy, man, crazy. I mean, you and I grew up with a different set of bands, a different time. You know, probably a good 10 years removed from this. Basically, when we were old enough to start appreciating anything at that point. Maybe a little bit longer than that. But yeah, Zeppelin in their heyday. God, what a band. One of these days we might even do an episode on Zeppelin. That'd be fun. But in the meantime, we're going to do this deep dive. We're going to go song by song. And dude, this will be fun. I feel like this will be a fun show, man, because, you know, everything you could possibly imagine, your take, your personal opinions, how the song affects you. And man, music like pro wrestling is a very subjective thing. And I've said this a lot. You know, it's on how it hits you, how it strikes you. I mean, there's really no right or wrong answer here. I mean, if you tell me, well, this band is my favorite and your band sucks, well, dude, that's your opinion, man. I mean, I've heard people, you know, cling to some of the worst bands I've ever heard. And I'm like, you guys have got to be kidding. But dude, that's how it hits their ears. That's what they grew up with, or it just sparks something inside their heads. And they're like, I just love this band. So you don't necessarily have to understand it. You don't even have to approve. But again, it's all very subjective. So I'm ready to do this, man. I mean, let me ask you this before we get started, because I got to know. We both listened to this album on the way into recording this show today. Be honest with me. When's the last time you actually listened to number 4 all the way through? Is this something in your constant rotation?
No, I can't say it is. When I decided, you know, you were talking about doing a show on just one single album. I don't know why, but I just thought, you know, Zeppelin, because they're a classic band. And I thought, you know, we've got to do a show on them sometime. And you came up with the idea for the album. I give credit to you there. And I thought, man, you know, that is probably, you know, their best album. And you know, I listened to it last night, you know, a little bit. I got my CD out this morning and listened to it on the way to work and on the way home from work. And man, you know, it's just a great way to pass the time, that trip, you know, back and forth. And it really got me pumped up. You know, some of these songs on there, you can really get up get up and get down on. It's like a good toe tapper, I guess you could say.
Yeah, get you moving, get you motivated for sure. This is one of those albums, man, I can put on at any time. And I'm like you, I can't say that I've listened to it religiously lately, but at any given time, it's in my rotation. I'll listen to it. The thing about this album, man, is once you start listening, it's hard to stop listening. It's hard for me to go from one track on this and flip to a track on another album. I mean, I really don't do that. Like, once I start listening to number 4, I'm in. And I'm in for all 8 songs. So hopefully everybody listening's in for all 8 songs as well. I'm going to go ahead and tell you up front, dude, I've already got positive reactions just from the suggestion of us doing this episode. So I've already got people hitting me online saying, man, I can't wait to listen to this particular show. So hopefully we've whet their appetites for what's to come. Let's get down, like you said, let's get down, man. Let's get down with this. Let's start this sucker off. The album begins with Black Dog. And pretty sure the words Black Dog are not mentioned at any point during this particular tune. Let me say this before we really start getting each other's opinions on this particular song. I'm a little surprised that the album didn't begin with rock and roll. I kind of always felt like this album should have begun with the song Rock and Roll. What an amazing opener it would have been. Black Dog is fantastic. But, that's me overthinking this thing. What do you think about Black Dog as the opening track for this album?
I think it's, because it was recorded that way and we listened to it from start to finish, it just became a normal way to start the album off. But, now that you mention it, Rock and Roll would have been probably a better choice thinking back. But, I mean, who's to question the great Led Zeppelin,
Right, of course.
Yeah, but Black Dog, I think it's a good opener as well. It's got a real good beat, tight, perfect mixture, the guitar and Plant's vocals. Man, I mean, yeah, you got to love that song.
Some backstory on this song. Black Dog is named after a Labrador dog that wandered around the studio at Headley Grange, where this album was recorded, where this album was written as well. And so the song's actually named after a dog that was just kind of hanging around. And Robert Plant in this song is also talking about her failed relationship with a gold digger. Imagine that, folks. Someone going after a rock star for his money. Who would have thunk it? So the title was inspired by an actual dog. Of course, as we said, the term Black Dog is not actually used in the song. And I love this song. I'm not going to criticize it. Like I said, my thoughts about Rock and Roll Open the album are just petty. This song is fantastic. Man, I love this. And that small little sound bite that begins the song, that little bit of electronic, that wow, 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 that just kicks the album off. And then Plant's vocal. Like, dude, Zeppelin was the era of the power trio. Jimi Hendrix, the Jimi Hendrix Experience, Cream, the power trio, and Robert Plant at the front with that voice, my God, screaming, but not screaming, singing. Like, there's a difference between, screaming your head off at a concert and singing. And man, the power of his voice in that opening vocal. God, all these years later listening to it, it still just takes my breath away, man. What is that vocal, when that vocal hits you at the very beginning? Are you not just ready to turn it up?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and of course, as it's recorded, his voice is turned up, so it hits you and, you're like, okay, we're ready to jam here. It's kind of quiet after the intro you talked about. And then Plant comes in and, he lifts you up. He gets you ready for what's to come for the rest of that track and the album. It's just, he's a great vocalist. Like you said, he sounds like he's screaming, but he's not. And it makes me think of another great vocalist, the head man of Soundgarden, Chris Cornell. Chris Cornell often is, to me, sounds like he's screaming, but he's not. He's singing, man. His voice is just amplified.
And he's very melodic. Both he and Plant have a lot in common. And I would love to have heard a Chris Cornell album of cover songs from Zeppelin. That would have been tremendous. And, Cornell had great range. I think Plant might could have, topped him on the high notes, depending on what song we're talking about. But man, I think he could have covered this song and done great justice to it. No doubt about it. So Plant about this song puts it straight to the point. He says, things like Black Dog are blatant, let's do it in the bathtub type of things, but they make their point. So to Plant, this was a straightforward song about a girl and just dirty and nasty. And, I totally get that. They're rock and roll band kids. That's what they are. And it's, rock and roll guys sing about women. It's part of the gig. So I totally get that, man. I don't know if I would call this a mindless rock and roll song, but man, just the groove to it. And man, talk to me about how well the band plays this song, how they're so on point. The constant stop and start. This is one of the tightest rock bands maybe that I've ever heard. They just played so incredibly well together.
Yeah, no exception in the opening track, Black Dog. Man, it's like the guitar, when it stopped, here comes Plant's voice again. So it leads you, it keeps flowing like, really fluent throughout the song. And I mean, Bonham on the drums, what can you say? One of the greatest drummers of all time. I mean, he's there, you can really hear the drums. I mean, he's just belting it out. And, like I said, this was a great way to start the album off.
You talked about supergroup, and it's funny you mention that because this definitely applies to Zeppelin, because any given time, all four members of this band, you could definitely attribute to being the best in their field. You could say John Paul Jones, best bassist, John Bonham, best drummer, Jimmy Page, best guitarist, Robert Plant, arguably the best vocalist. I mean, dude, it's a four-way for me, man. I think this song best represents who this band is, and I think it plays to all of their strengths. And it's funny because when it comes to this song, so Jimmy Page actually said that John Paul Jones had the riff. It wasn't easy to play. The drums had to play 4/4 through it. But Black Dog is more than a riff. You have the call and response, the vocal and riff, then the bridge and other parts to move the song along. So it's a good point that, Plant speaks his or sings his part, and then the band responds and they stop. And then Plant sings and and he stops, and the band responds and he stops. And it's such a great give and go until the song really kicks in. But it constantly has that stop and start and stop, right? And dude, to me, again, perfect. This is an example of I don't know if I call it the perfect rock song, but it's got to be up there, man. I just love everything about it.
Yeah, and let me stop you right there and just state one of my favorite lines in the song, where Plant's talking about the woman. He's just fooling around with. I don't know what I've been told. Big-legged woman ain't got no soul. That great. Just right there sums it up.
It's great. It's kind of dark, really, if you think about it, and it's a throwback. Because, dude, Zeppelin at their core is a blues band. That's what they are. And these guys grew up loving black blues music, black soul music in America. That's a lot of those bands, and so did the Stones. A lot of those bands did. And yeah, man, Big-Legged Woman, that's been used in a lot of blues tracks before. Before Zeppelin ever came along. So yeah, I'm with you. I love the lyrics. The lyrics are just straightforward, to the point, just punch you straight in the face. It's just so good. And who can beat, hey, mama said, the way you move, gonna make you sweat, gonna make you groove. My God. That's, we're all about it here, folks. This is all about the rock and roll. This is nothing hidden. No hidden meanings in this song. You don't have to figure out what they're talking about. It's a woman for sure. So final thoughts on this song, man. Still, all right. So I don't know. Is it your favorite on the album, or have we not gotten there yet?
No, it's not my favorite, but like you said, every song on this album is top notch. You listen straight through. You don't skip any tracks, playing a CD or anything. So, yeah, Black Dog, it made a statement. It's talking about no strings attached sex here.
Yes.
Life of a rock and roller, one night stand maybe or something like that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And as we're recording this, there's a dog barking outside. And usually I try to clean that up, but I think I'm going to leave him in there just for the sake of the fact that we're talking about Black Dog. So It's kind of a nice touch. That's very poetic there. That's what that is. So track number 2 off the album, the one that we kind of talked about right when we started recording here, Rock and Roll. I don't know how long we're going to spend talking about this song. I could spend all day or I could spend 2 seconds because it's just freaking phenomenal. I don't know how else to say it. Dude, we're probably going to overthink it and overtalk it. It's kind of how we do here on the show, but my God, you don't need to. Such a great song, man. Talk about it.
Oh, yeah, it's got the fast pace right from the beginning. You've got Bonham's drums, which he was inspired by Little Richard's Keep a Knockin' song.
Yes.
So I like the fact that, he's listening to other artists. He's, taking from them, a little bit from them, and that drum beat at the beginning, that really gets you going. You want to tap your toe or, slap your leg or something. And, it's just all the way through. It's jamming. It's, it just really pumps you up.
Yes, another song to motivate you. Man, if you needed a workout record, let me tell you right now, this would definitely be a workout record, folks. I'm telling you. And you know what's funny is that growing up, I would always try to sing this song. And you can't listen. If you're going to sing along with this song, you have to scream. Because, I don't sound like Plant. I don't know if you do when you sing. But, I know I don't. So my version of singing like Plant is screaming. So, yeah. But it's funny because I never knew the lyrics. And I would get some of them, and then I kind of lost them at certain times. But, man, what a great vocal on this song.
I don't even try to mimic Plant at all. I let him, do the work, and right. I listen and enjoy it because there's just no way you can replicate what Plant did all those years ago on that song.
Oh yeah, unless you're a pro. I play some bass, but I'm not a pro lead vocalist. That's for sure. So, but yeah, again, the lyrics. It's been a long time since I rock and rolled. It's been a long time since I did the stroll. Let me get it back, baby, where I come from. And it's, again, you don't have to read between the lines. This is flat out telling you what they're talking about. This is the band itself wanting to get back to rock and roll. This is it. And Jimmy Page about this song said, rock and roll was a spontaneous combustion. We were doing something else at the time, but Bonzo, of course, their nickname for John Bonham, Bonzo played the beginning of Little Richard's Good Golly Miss Molly with the tape still running. And I just started doing that part of the riff. It actually ground to a halt after about 12 bars, but it was enough to know that there was enough of a number there to keep working on it. Robert even came in singing on it straight away. So, dude, talk about magic.
Sometimes the best stuff happens very quickly. You don't have to think about it. It just happens. And, John Bonham, he really set the tone at the beginning of the song with the drums. You know you were going to be in for a great ride for that second track, yes. Rock and Roll. And I like the fact that they're very straightforward. It's simple, down to the basics, rock and roll, going back to, the old days, like just want to get up there and go crazy, man.
Oh, man. And I love the idea of them jamming and Plant just walking in. And I can just, in my head, I can envision him kind of just under his breath, just kind of sing-songing something. And then when he hears this riff, just for out of the blue, it's been a long time since I rock and roll. And that becomes the lyric, and it becomes history, and it becomes amazing. And they are solid gold with this. It's, oh, dude, like it's a perfect storm for a rock and roll song. No doubt about it. The fact that everything clicked the way it clicked. If this album is the perfect rock and roll album, dude, I submit that Rock and Roll is the perfect rock and roll song. I don't know what more you need from us here, but to convince you. But man, great stuff here, man. So at the time, Rolling Stone said of the album, Zeppelin were struggling to rehearse 4 sticks when Bonham spontaneously played the now famous snare and open hi-hat drum intro to Rock and Roll. And again, of course, it imitates Little Richard. And the song, initially called It's Been a Long Time, expresses a palpable longing for youth and the innocence of 50s rock. Plant refers to The Stroll, an old dance, and to The Book of Love by the Montones from 1958, but the music recasts rock and roll as something fierce and modern. That last line pretty much says it all. You take 50s, and dude, you said the words toe tapping a couple of times so far. You take 50s toe tapping, feel good rock and roll, speed it up, give it a 70s twist, a 70s flair, and oh my God, it's off to the races. I don't know how much better you can do than that. That's just great. Talk to me about this song being sort of the evolution. Would you consider like a natural evolution of toe tapping rock and roll at this point?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I can just see in my mind Little Richard, banging away on those keys on the piano.
Yes.
And maybe even going back to Chuck Berry too. Just guys that wanted to play good time rock and roll. And yeah, Led Zeppelin really, they really got a good mixture there of that old classic rock and, a good, maybe a good little speed up for a 70s style.
Man, I don't know if this exists, and maybe I'm off base, and maybe these two acts never cross paths. But how cool would it have been to see Little Richard on stage with Zeppelin playing the piano riff of this song? How amazing would that have been for everybody involved?
Yeah, that would have been amazing. It would have sold out. Would have been a sold out show for sure.
Oh my God!
Those two acts together, yeah, it's going to be a packed house.
And we've said it here before on the show, man. Don't anybody ever discount the possibility of something like that happening because, art appreciates art. Musicians appreciate musicians. Musicians from every walk of life and from different genres can appreciate the art that each other brings to the table. It doesn't have to be it's all gospel or it's all blues or it's all rock. It can be a mixture of all of it together. And I mean, dude, we've seen plenty of times through the year duets take place or bands working together or a guitarist appears on an album or a singer appears on this other album. Dude, we've seen Garth Brooks and Kiss work together, for God's sake. I mean, good musicianship crosses the lines and respect is shown. And I'm not going to say that clip doesn't exist. I'm going to hope in my brain it does, and I'm going to Google that stuff and hope I'm right. So here's hoping we see Little Richard on stage with Zeppelin. My God, let's get in the Wayback Machine and make that happen. So any last words on this song, man? I mean, what more can you say about it, really?
And like you said, it could have been the opening track to the album. And I was doing a little research and, just came across a little nugget where in concert it was used as an encore,
yes.
Which is perfect.
Absolutely, yeah.
It.
And on their album where they came back together, I think it was Celebration Day, I believe. I think Rock and Roll was an encore of that show, which, by the way, that album is just so good. It's so great. I mean, Jason Bonham's subbing in for his famous father, of course, and it's such a good album. So I highly recommend it. Well, that is going to take us to the third track on the album. This is a departure from the first two songs that we heard. And this is where Zeppelin becomes a different kind of band for me. Zeppelin in the first two songs, the first song, very bluesy, with Black Dog. The second song, of course, rock and roll, says it all. They're a rock and roll band through and through, for sure, through thick and thin, the whole way. The third song, The Battle of Evermore. And The Battle of Evermore, to me, is, dude, I can close my eyes right now and listen to this song, and I'm doing it right now. And I can hear this song in my head, and I picture the woods, I picture knights, I picture maidens, I see on horseback, and I see castles, and I see medieval, and that's the other side of this band, man. That sort of folksy country sound, that old England sound, or that sort of that style. And man, that's the vibe it gives me. I don't know about you, man. How you feel about this?
Yeah, I agree totally. And I was gonna say that if you hadn't, but you beat me to the punch. Yeah, it takes me, it makes me think of like the days of knights, kings and queens, maidens, maybe Robin Hood, something like that.
Yes.
And my imagination can run wild. And also I think it sounds haunting. Robert Plant's vocals are very haunting on that song. And actually, the woman that sings on the song with him,
Sandy Denny, from a band called Fairport Convention, and I know nothing of their stuff. Apparently, they're a British folk band. So yeah.
Yeah, I think she complimented Plant very well on that song. Both of that, they have such a great harmony at one or other points in the song. It's just beautiful, and yeah, it's kind of a mystical sounding song as well. It makes you think of what might have been, back then, or maybe like a spirit floating around too.
Oh my God, for sure. Yeah, no doubt. It's got a very ghostly feel to it as well. Like, I'm kind of Monty Python and the Holy Grail without the humor, sort of. And, it's just that vibe. I think of the Renaissance Festival when I hear this song. I can't help it. Tom Clark's 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark's 6M podcast sent you. You could sing this song, I believe, during that time, and it would have been like, oh, well, this is perfect. This is what we do. We're out in the open. We're singing this song with the old style instruments and stuff. And, I will say this about this song and others that Zeppelin did sort of within the same vibe as this song, Ballad of Evermore. It puts them in a different class. It gives them sort of an air of sophistication. If that word may be too big, I don't know, but they're not a throwaway rock and roll band. This is an example of four guys who were thinking outside the box. And to me, and I don't know, I like the fact that this is in their catalog. I like the fact that this is part of their sound, and this is one of the songs they're known for. And man, the writing. The Queen of Light took her bow, and then she turned to go. The Prince of Peace embraced the gloom and walked the night alone. Shut up, that's poetry, man. Flat out poetry.
Oh, yeah. I read where Plant, got the inspiration for this song from reading a book about Scottish independence wars. So, yeah, of course, in the title it's talking about a battle, but, yeah, Battle of Evermore, it's just great stuff. And it's a very, very deep song, a lot of deep lyrics there. It's not just, talking about something simple. You could imagine anything when you listen to the lyrics.
Oh, of course. And the chorus. I hear the horses thunder down in the valley below. I'm waiting for the angels of Avalon, waiting for the eastern glow. I've never in my life written anything that poetic. And that may have been written in 5 minutes. I don't know, but my God, amazing. Dude, if I told you this is my favorite Zeppelin tune, or even my favorite song on the record, I'd be lying. However, I have a hard time skipping past it because God, the arrangement is just beautiful. I love it. I love the sound. It strikes a chord in me, and I can't even put it into words what it does for me personally. But man, I love everything about this song. It's a keeper to me. I mean, where does it fall for you in terms of overall on this album in particular?
It's definitely one of my favorites on the album. I can't really say if I have a favorite. It might be the next one we're going to talk about, of course, which probably everybody's favorite. But yeah, and I love Page's mandolin playing on there. Man,
yes.
That's wow. It's just amazing. And I love to hear a musician play a mandolin and play it great.
Yes, absolutely. And I can just in my head envision these guys dressed in the medieval dress at the time and just gathered around like a campfire doing this song. It's just, the imagery is perfect. It's just perfect. And I love this song. I really do love this song. So you talked about the fourth track. Dude, take us there. Talk to us. What's the fourth song on this album? Go.
Probably the greatest Led Zeppelin song ever, Stairway to Heaven, written by Page. What else would you expect from the man himself?
Yes.
And lyrics written by Plant at Headley Grange about a woman who took everything and gave nothing back in life.
Yes.
I like that imagery. And, it's not just maybe about a woman. It could be about anybody. Maybe it's talking about, don't put so much emphasis on material things. Think about what's most important in life, as far if you're climbing maybe a stairway to heaven.
Oh, man. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Yeah, I'm with you. This is, and dude, everybody agrees, obviously. Stairway is maybe the best Led Zeppelin song of all time. You can make a case for Kashmir as being the most commercially successful and most recognized. But I would say if you put Stairway on, anyone from any walk of life, if they don't know it, would go, this sounds familiar. Have I heard this before? So yeah, it's just one of those songs, man. And you gave us the backstory about it. It is very I don't want to say different, because they, again, folks, it's a rock and roll band. They sing a lot about women. It makes perfect sense. But this song resonated with young listeners, opening up a door to a different realm of spirituality. And that's the key. This song accomplishes a lot of things and serves a lot of masters in this song. You've got the slow burn. You've got the melody. You've got the imagery, sort of the medieval imagery that we talked about earlier with Ballad of Evermore, right? And then you've got the rock and roll side when the song kicks in. And man, this song, it's spiritual is the word, and it's like in the ether. It's very glowing. It's very, in my head, I just always pictured how she looks. And to me, it doesn't sound like something happening right now in front of me. It feels like something that happened in the past. And Jimmy Page at the time said that the song crystallized the essence of the band. It had everything there and showed us at our best. It was a milestone. Every musician wants to do something of lasting quality, something which will hold up for a long time. We did it with Stairway. Absolutely perfect. I mean, the man's, like you said, you call him the man earlier. He's the man. I don't know what more you can say after that, but this song is, like I said, it serves a lot of masters. It touches every area that they touched as a band. This song does it all. And, talk about what do you feel when, I find over the years, more people I talk to that are Zeppelin fans or even casual Zeppelin fans, this song does something different for them. What does it do for you, or does it do anything for you in terms of actually making you feel something? Well, how does it connect to you?
Well, the beginning, it's very calm, peaceful. It's almost kind of sad-like too. You hear that. I've heard people, question what instrument they used. That sounds like a kind of like a flute, maybe, but I looked it up. It's kind of like a recorder, and I love that sound because it goes through, and until you get to the rocking part of the song, it filters through as Plant, goes along talking about, this woman, buying the Stairway to Heaven, and it feels like that sound, that recorder, is going up the Stairway to Heaven, literally almost.
Oh my God!
And,
yeah.
And spiritually, this is definitely a spiritual song, a veritable mix of, the slow and the rock and roll near the end. And also makes me think not only is it a woman, but maybe the woman could be, the temptations in life that we're trying to resist. We're trying to stay on that straight and narrow path. Maybe this is a song about our lives, personally, trying to avoid all the bad things and just stay with the simple, the good, wholesome stuff.
And I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on the legal stuff. I think if you're a Zeppelin fan, you know all about the lawsuit brought by Spirit, an instrumental that they called Taurus from '68. And supposedly Page had lifted the solo and lifted the licks and whatnot. Does it sound similar? Yes. Do I believe that Page lifted it? Not necessarily. Here's what I'll say. The most recent activity on this song, and hopefully this will be the end of it, but who knows. March 9th, 2020, the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit ruled in favor of Zeppelin in that Stairway to Heaven does not infringe on the copyright of Taurus. Among its point, the full Ninth Circuit used their decision to overturn the controversial inverse ratio rule, which it had relied over the past several decades in past copyright rulings, stating, because the inverse ratio rule, which is not part of the copyright statute, defies logic and creates uncertainty for the courts and the parties, we take this opportunity to, essentially, they're overturning it, okay? And which is good. And, all due respect to everyone from Spirit, and I can't imagine what it must have been like to hear this song for the first time and go, wait a minute, that sounds a lot like our stuff. And I'm all about the musicians. I'm all about the creators. I'm about getting what you deserve for what you create. Dude, I still to this day, I don't personally know how I feel about this. Zeppelin obviously has a lot of things working for them. They're the better known band. They're legends. They've been around the world so many times. They're Rock and Roll Hall of Famers. I mean, they're all of the above and then some, inspirational and just, trendsetters and icons. Then you have a band that you've never heard of ever, more than likely. So they've got a lot of things working for them. Where do you fall on this argument, man? What's your take on this?
Yeah, I'm on the side of the fans of Led Zeppelin. I don't want to see it dragged through the mud, and I think we could all just come to some kind of compromise. I remember the first time I found out about it. I looked into it. I listened to it on YouTube. I mean, I had to admit, I was taken aback for a second. But I don't know the whole story, so I've got to side with whatever the court decides on this one.
Yeah, like I said, man, we've probably spent more time than I wanted to spend on it, but I feel like we have to acknowledge it just for the sake of prosperity and just to get it out there in case we're cornered on the question of it or whatever. But I mean, to me, this song stands the test of time. It always will. It is Zeppelin's calling card. It is their song. It is, and it's like, I don't know if I can say that here's the Beatles song. It's the Beatles. Dude, I've got 24 songs I can say that about with that band. And I've got that with Zeppelin too, don't get me wrong. But if you cornered me right now and said, name the Beatles song, go. It would take me a second. With Zeppelin, it's Stairway to Heaven, without a doubt. This is their contribution, and they've got a lot, but this is their contribution to the art of rock and roll. I firmly believe that. And if you need any more proof, folks, and as we wind on down the road, our shadow's taller than our soul, there walks a lady we all know who shines white light and wants to show how everything still turns to gold, and if you listen very hard, the tune will come to you at last, when all are one and one is all, to be a rock and not to roll. Dude, again, poetry. These guys are poets, man. Jimmy Page is a poet.
Yeah, Robert Plant is phenomenal with his, lyric writing. Page complements Page's guitar, Bonham's drums. Yeah, I mean, it's just unbelievable what these guys were able to accomplish in their career. And how about Page with the double-necked Gibson guitar in concert? Yeah, I mean, he switched from acoustic to electric. I mean, what? Yeah, are you kidding me?
Yeah, crazy. Talented. Guys if you're a player, it ticks you off how good this guy is. And he still is, by the way. Page can still cook. Cooking with gas, man. So good stuff. So that takes us to the next track on the album. If you're counting, kids, this is the 5th track. And this is a good one. This is a fun one. It's a get up and dance song. And dude, if you can't dance to this, I submit you can't dance. Because even if you don't have the moves, you can get up and groove to this. Misty Mountain Hop. Dude, talk to me about this song, man. How cool, how fun is this song?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, you had the two rock and roll songs to begin, and then you slowed it down with Battle of Evermore and Stairway to Heaven. Then you go back to, the groovy rock and roll with Misty Mountain Hop. Now, I love the story it kind of tells. It's kind of like these hippies doing drugs and they're clashing with the police.
Yes.
And it's really a fun song to listen to. The beat, man, the guitar, again, it's right on.
Had we not seen the backstory, if we didn't know the backstory of why this song came to be, I don't know if you could have pieced it together. Because, the line about crowds of people sitting on the grass with flowers in their hair said, hey, boy, do you want to score? Well, yeah, it's drugs. It's hippies and drugs. But, God, dude, the way Robert could sing about a serial killer and make that stuff fun to listen to. I mean, make it sexy and make it dirty and make it awesome at the same time. I mean, who else can do that as a rock vocalist, man? I mean, he just, as I said, it's what's the old saying? This guy could sing the phone book and earn a Grammy. It's the truth. He's so good. Good.
And I've often made the comment, another song, Whole Lot of Love, Robert Plant kind of sounds like, he's getting it on in that song at one point.
Yes. I know, right? And unashamedly, unabashedly out there. Unashamedly rock and roll. But again, dude, Misty Mountain Hop, I mean, despite the lyrics and you kind of know what he's talking about, I mean, I could just picture a room full of little kids bouncing up and down this song. It's not a prerequisite, obviously, but it's just fun. It's fun to bob your head to tap your foot to. It's just such a good song. And melodically, it's beautiful. The way the lyrics are, the way he sings it. I love the way he sings it. This is a great song.
Talking about the police coming in and asking them to all get in line. And you think at that point, I was like, wow, they're busted. But then, they say, it sounds like the police is inviting them over
right.
and, to have a good time. So it's like, takes it into a strange direction there.
You know how I took that? And maybe I'm reading somewhere different in this. That to me, suddenly it went from Cops in America, the way it sounded, to Cops in England, where it became, they asked us to stay for tea and have some fun. And suddenly it sounded prim and proper. Like, oh, well, you thought we were going to bash heads. We actually just wanted to have a cup of tea with you. Spot of tea, I guess. So,
yeah,
that's fun stuff, man.
I like that. I like that interpretation there, yeah.
Why don't you take a good look at yourself and describe what you see, and baby, do you like it? There you sit, sitting spare like a book on a shelf rusting. Not trying to fight it. You really don't care if they're coming? I know it's all a state of mind. Dude. Dude, you could, and here's the thing. This is probably out there too. This probably exists somewhere. A Led Zeppelin book of lyrics, and it's like poetry. It's just a book of poetry. That's all it is. And if you didn't tell anyone, hey, these are actually rock songs, they would go, hey, who wrote this? I don't know if I know this guy's work. Who's the poet that wrote this? Man, awesome stuff.
Yeah, it's like the Led Zeppelin Bible, if you will. It's like you can get wisdom from these songs. They tell great stories. Very deep at times, but also it's just like maybe lessons can be learned as well.
Yes, absolutely. Can't disagree with that at all. Well, we're on now to the 6th track on the album. Almost ready to wrap this sucker up. This is 4 Sticks. Now listen, this is similar to me in terms of the Ballad of Evermore. Again, if I said this is my favorite Zeppelin song, or even my favorite Zeppelin song on this album, I'd be lying. It's not. But I love it because it is relentless. That groove, bum, 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 bum. Dude, it repeats and it repeats and it repeats and it repeats. And it never lets up. And it's just straight in your face, that groove. And man, that lick, that groove is so Zeppelin. If I never knew this song and I heard just that, I would say, God, I think that's Zeppelin. I mean, to me, you can automatically identify the band just with that groove.
Yeah, I love the tuning of the guitar on that song. It's just like you said, keeps going. And I didn't know the story behind the title of the song, 4 Sticks. Bonham has a drum pattern playing with 4 sticks. Actually, so again, they're not trying to go over your head with this. They're basically telling you, what the song is about,
right.
With the title. And they said it was difficult to record, which, I can imagine the most difficult material on the album to finalize. So I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in the studio when they were trying to put this one together.
How good do you have to be? How much of a master are you at your instrument where you're just sitting around going, you know what? I'll pick up 4 sticks this time. Like you're just that bored. You're so good, and you've mastered your element. You've mastered your device. You've mastered your instrument to the point where you're like, I'll just pick up 2 more sticks, see what I can do with that. That's like, to me, that's the equivalent of the first guy to ever take the guitar and play it behind his head because he got bored. And he's like, I'll try this because I'm so good. Like, it's disgusting how good Bonham was. Just crazy good.
Yeah, I guess he just needed a new challenge. Sometimes they wanted to they need to push themselves. And, here was another example. Incredible. And I was amazed to discover that this song was played live only once in concert. I don't know why, but I would love to have heard it over and over.
I imagine the degree of difficulty, even though he was amazing, and he was, I imagine the degree of difficulty was pretty high. And if I'm guessing, I would say that the recording of this song helped identify the sound of this song and made it work. Not that it was the saving grace, because these four guys are amazing, as we've said. But if I'm putting my best guess for it, I would say that it's more of a studio track than it is a live track. But no matter what you call it, it's good, and it's classic Zeppelin. I mean, and again, dude, I'm the writer here, right? It's kind of my jam. It's kind of what I think and how I look at life, and that kind of, filter I use pretty much for everything. So when I get to the line, and when the owls cry in the night, oh baby, when the pines begin to cry, how do you feel? If the rivers run dry, how would you feel? I mean, the rainbows end. It's, dude, who hide their love to depths of life and ruin dreams that we all knew? I mean, take a minute and just listen to the songs because they're awesome. But take a few minutes out of your day and read the lyrics. And I guarantee you're going to be like I'm doing right now, just tripping over it and saying, my God, it's perfection, dude. Am I blowing up? Am I just too crazy on my view on this, or am I dead on point here?
You are dead on point for sure. And I'm beginning to wonder if Robert Plant has published some poetry under a pseudonym, that we don't know about, and it's just out there somewhere, and we've maybe read it before and just didn't know it. And I mean, are you kidding?
God, dude, as soon as we stop recording, I'm going on Amazon and I'm going to find something. I guarantee. I would almost bet money on this. Maybe I will, that he has published some kind of poetry of some sort, because amazing. And listen, let's call it like it is here, folks. I mean, Page, a lot of Zeppelin's music was written by Page. I mean, I'm not saying that Plant didn't have input. I'm not saying that he didn't do any. I'm not even suggesting that. But Page with the arrangements, Page was a very creative guy. I mean, how much of the stuff is they're in a studio jamming or sitting around a couch with a notebook and jamming, and it's, oh, what about this line? Oh, throw this word in. Oh, how about we try this? And to me, and dude, maybe I'm off base on this, maybe so, but in my head, I always envisioned the two of them sort of being like a Lennon and McCartney, where it was like, when they're separate individuals, they do their own thing, but when they come together in a studio experience or in just a discussion about what they're going to record, they riff ideas off of each other and bounce ideas off of each other, and that's how they end up writing a song. Maybe I'm off track, dude, but that's sort of how I've always envisioned it.
Yeah, it's a great point you made, with the Lennon and McCartney. Pretty much the two leaders of the band, like Plant and Page were. Yeah, they all collaborated, but yeah, Page and Plant were the driving force behind the band.
Absolutely. That takes us to the next track, folks. And we're getting down to the good stuff here. I mean, it's, we've covered some amazing tracks. This time we're going a little bit lighter. This is an acoustic jam called Going to California, a hauntingly beautiful acoustic tune. The song tells the story of a man who has left his unkind woman and is off to California with dreams and hopes of finding his real love. So it's not a I'm cheating on you kind of song. It's not a I've had enough and I'm out. It's sort of a combination of a lot of things. And it's just this guy saying, she wasn't what I needed her to be. And not only am I out, but I'm out totally. I'm going to another state. I'm going somewhere else because I've got dreams, I've got hopes, I've got aspirations. And in the process of trying to fulfill my dreams, hopefully I'll find the one that I'm supposed to be with. I mean, trust me, folks, as a man, I mean, that's something that I've went through many times in the past, in my younger days and whatnot. And it's just, that dream of there's something better out there. I mean, this is one of the sweetest songs that I think they've ever done. And I don't know if this has ever been described as a love song, but to me, it always just feels like a love song. So I don't know, man. How's this song hit you?
Yeah, I love Going to California because it's about endings and beginnings in life.
Yes.
Something didn't work out, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world. You've got dreams and aspirations, as you said. And yeah, it's just a very, very peaceful, and I don't know, it overwhelms me with peace how Robert Plant sings the song, and of course Page's acoustics. Man, it really puts me in a calm mood. If I'm upset or anything, I can listen to this, and it changes me. It changes my mood instantly. Like I said, endings and beginnings. It's just traveling going to find out what else is out there.
I love the way you put that. It's perfect. It's an exploration. It's a song about a journey. It's also a song about exploration. And as much as in my head it feels like a love song, it's also about, well, what it's actually about. It's about one man's search to find, like you said, his peace, his inner peace, if you will, and to find himself along the way. And again, the lyrics: spent my days with a woman unkind, smoked my stuff and drank all my wine. Made up my mind to make a new start, going to California with an aching in my heart. Someone told me there's a girl out there with love in her eyes and flowers in her hair. Took my chances on a big jet plane. Never let them tell you that they're all the same. Dude, never let them tell you that they're all the same. Dude, like...
Yeah, where does this genius come up with this stuff? You know, I mean, it's...
Great stuff. Just great stuff. I mean, you know, I can't say enough good things about the lyrics to this. And this song was written by Page and Plant. And also, it was a very odd little nugget, like you said earlier, written about Californian earthquakes. Also trying to find the perfect woman, but like the earthquake part always threw me for a loop. But the music was inspired by Joni Mitchell, of course, in her own right, a great folk singer of the 60s, right? Classic, both of whom Plant and Page were fans. The track was originally titled Guide to California. The final title comes from the trip to Los Angeles to mix the album. So, perfect. Again, it's a sweet song. It's a very introspective song. And dude, when you said it brings about peace, I mean, you got me there. I don't think I can say anything any better than that.
Yeah, and what man hasn't pictured in his mind the perfect woman? And I think Robert Plant, you know, described it to a T, you know, with flowers in her hair. I mean, that, to the femininity there, you know, just, you know, she's beautiful within and without.
Oh, yeah. Well said. Well said. Well, we're wrapping up this album with a classic, and this song was not written by Zeppelin. This was actually an old blues song by Memphis Minnie and Kansas Joe McCoy, recorded in 1929. This is When the Levee Breaks. The track opens with Bonham's heavy unaccompanied drumming, which was recorded in the lobby of Headley Grange using 2 microphones, which were hung up a flight of stairs. Output from these were passed to a limiter. Dude, the effects on this thing, on the intro, and dude, talk to me about one of the... To me, this is right up there with the intro to We Will Rock You. Because the second you hear We Will Rock You, know it's Queen. The second you hear this, boom, boom, ka, boom. Dude, the second I hear that, it's When the Levee Breaks, it's Bonham. You just know. How do you not know, right?
Yeah, and I'm glad you made the analogy to Queen, you know, We Will Rock You. I wasn't even thinking about that, but yeah, it puts me in that same mode. You know, I mean, the drums really, they pump you up inside. You know, this also reminds me of another song by a band we know and love, STP, Stone Temple Pilots, the final track on the Core album, Where the River Goes. You know, the drum beat on that song is very similar to this one. It just gets you going right away. And Bonham really delivered once again. He set the tone for the song. But, of course, I have to admit I did not know that this was not an original Zeppelin tune. You know, when I was doing the research, I was amazed to find out that it was just a cover of an old song, and I would love to hear the original version.
Oh my God. You know, I don't think I've ever heard the original version because, like a lot of things that Zeppelin touched, dude, when they touched it, it became theirs. They took sole possession. I mean, right? I mean, the second they touched a tune and said, oh, we're going to do this blues song, it no longer did it belong to the guy that originally did it. And I'm sure that wasn't their intention. I don't think it was done out of any means of disrespect. Because as we said earlier, this band loved old blues music from America. But, you know, it's just, with as good as they are, as accomplished as they are, this is the 4th album, kids. I mean, at this point, they've completely gelled as a band. 4 albums in, are you kidding me? Completely gelled. At the height of their game on this album. And yeah, they could have covered Happy Birthday and you would have been like, I've never heard this song before. This is an amazing song. Because that's how good they were, right?
Yeah. And I love the fact that they did a bluesy cover. You know, that's what Zeppelin was all about. And it worked out great. just the harmonics and the drum beat, Page's guitar, man, it really sends me, into the atmosphere, I got to say.
Oh, good stuff. And here's a quote. Here's a great quote from Page, and this is really good stuff. And you got to hang on for this because I don't think I've ever read this before. It was very Charles Dickens, dank and spooky. I'm guessing she's talking about Headley Grange, obviously. The room I chose to live in was at the very top of the building, and the sheets were always sort of wet. Headley Grange freaked Robert and John Bonham out, but I liked it, actually. I'm pretty sure it was haunted. I remember going up the main stairway on the way to my room one night and seeing a gray shape at the top. I double-checked to see if it was just a play of light, and it wasn't, so I turned around pretty fast because I didn't want to have an encounter with something like that. But I wasn't surprised to find spirits there because the place had a miserable past. One real positive outcome of us recording there is that I believe we revitalized the energy at Headley. The place became lighter as a result of our stay there. If you didn't know anything about that and then heard it later, I mean, basically like I just did for the first time, I mean, that's when the levee breaks. Dark, spooky, powerful, haunting. Dude, does that not just perfectly describe this song to a T?
Absolutely, man. And I get the feeling every time I listen to it, but it's got it's real groovy, for a bluesy song. Of course, I guess they put their touch on that. They put their spin on their own kind of spin on that song. But I mean, and they used it later, when they were touring, No Quarter, Jimmy
Yes.
Page, Robert Plant. Yeah, I mean, again, it's one of the songs. I mean, how do you not end the fourth album, with that song now?
Did you like No Quarter? Did you enjoy that album?
It wasn't as good as 4, of course, but I liked it.
I mean, I loved it at the time when it came out because they were talking about Plant and Page, and I said, I'm sorry, what? I remember having that reaction, like, I don't know if I read it in Rolling Stone or if I heard it on TV. I'm like, wait a minute, what was that? Like sort of a comedic double take where you're like, what? And because I'm like, oh my God, I'm there. I'm so there because they did like a DVD of like videos with it. I don't know if you call it a video, but like a documentary or something with the album. Oh my God, so good. And part of that is the fanboy in me saying, it's Plant and Page, dude. I couldn't wait to hear it. Couldn't wait to see it. So, I mean, that's a different thing for a different time maybe. But yeah, it's, again, this song. And we talked about lyrics a bunch during this show, right? And I get it. These guys didn't write this song. But, I mean, the ominous and dark, dude. Crying won't help you. Praying won't do you no good. Crying won't help you. Praying won't do you no good. When the levee breaks, mama, you got to move. I mean, that's... I got cold chills right now, man.
And talking about when the song was originally written in 29 during the Great Depression, I mean, that typifies what was going on at that time. I just thought of that. I mean, wow.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. Deep dives here, folks. That's what we give you on this show. So, yeah, man, it's, again, it's a signature song for them, for me. If you weren't a Zeppelin fan and you heard this, I don't know that you know who it is, but there's not a Zeppelin fan, or in my opinion, a rock and roll fan on the planet that doesn't know this song. And if they don't, shame on them, because they're missing a great one. Dude, we've zipped through the whole album, man. I say zipped, but we're well past an hour, I think. But no, it's all good. But like everything else we discussed, man, I could talk about this stuff all. I'm like Captain America. I could do this all day, right? I mean, man, what an album! What a great album. I mean, I think I have more respect for it now than I did before we did this show. I mean, I just love it so much, man. Listen, is this to you Zeppelin's best album? I mean, where are you on that right now?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, it's my favorite Zeppelin album, and I think it's the best. Not just because it was the best selling of all time of their albums, but I mean, it just speaks volumes to me. I mean, when I was thinking Zeppelin and you mentioned the fourth album, I had to go back and look. I was like, well, yeah, that of course. I mean, that would be the perfect one to do, and I think it turned out great.
It's by far a classic. It's legendary. It's iconic. And, we're not too much past an hour, to be honest with you. But, I mean, I could go for another hour. If you got time, I can do it. But, no, it's all good. But, man, it's, as I said, I'm a nerd. I'm a geek when it comes to this stuff, man. It's who I is, man. When I go out for this, music, movies, pro wrestling, comics, TV, it's my jam. All of it is. All that and a lot more. So this album excites me. It takes me back to my childhood. And, it was released in 71. I was born in 73. And it takes me back. But it also takes me to my teenage years. It takes me to my 20s, my 30s, beyond. It takes me to today. This is one of those albums that it's part of the soundtrack of my life, and that's not overstating it at all. It's part of who I am as a man today. I mean, it's, and I don't care how it sounds. It's just reality. I take this stuff very seriously, man. I know you do too. And, it's, like I said, it's part of the soundtrack. I mean, I can't imagine life without Led Zeppelin at all, and I definitely can't imagine without this album. I mean, it's just so good. And for me, I at any given time, I believe that the Physical Graffiti albums were the best, because in terms of creativity, it's sort of a hodgepodge of songs, but they seem to fit. And I love those songs. A lot of those songs I love. But dude, as we said at the beginning of this show, this is the quintessential rock and roll album, man. If you don't like this album, there's something wrong with you. I mean, I'm with you, brother. I think this is their best effort ever. And I'm proud to have it. I'm glad to own it. I'm glad we have it. I mean, it makes my life better. I think it makes the world a better place too. I'm sorry. We live in bad times here, folks. I mean, it's just, don't leave your house. In more ways than one, stay home, for God's sake. There's just crap out there anyway. So, if you're going to stay home anyhow, you might as well listen to Led Zeppelin IV, kick your feet up, close your eyes, and just enjoy it. So, yeah, man, I love this album, man. I don't know. What's this album mean to you, honestly? I mean, at the end of the day, what's this album do for you? All things considered, all the tracks included, and at the same time, your favorite song on this album? Did you say Rock and Roll is your favorite, or is it Stairway your favorite song on this album?
Stairway, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this album, it really moves me. It's a veritable mix of, rock and roll groove and some deep storytelling, with, a lot of love behind that. And some of the stories, they might be a little dark, but, I think maybe they're trying to reach people on a deeper level, they're trying to maybe teach some lessons here. For example, a lyric in Stairway to Heaven, and this is positively awesome. Yes, there are two paths you can go by, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on. Man, I mean, Robert Plant, again, a genius, a poet. What else can you say?
And, see, we're going to deep dive again. I could do it. I'm down. Let's do this. But I'm not. No, I'm playing. But, yeah, like, as you said, it's perfect. And Plant, he wrote 80% of lyrics on this. I mean, yeah, his influence, his hand is very much felt in this. And like we said before, kids, it is a partnership. It's two guys putting their brains together and making it work. And art came out of this band. The line that Greg just read, there's still time to change the road you're on. Dude, that's deep. That's crazy deep, man. And, I said forever that Levy might be my favorite song on this album. I said Rock and Roll might be, but Stairway's got to be up there. I mean, if I'm getting pinned down on what's my favorite song on this album, I mean, that's, I don't know. I think to me it's still Rock and Roll, man. I'm still partial to that. I love Stairway, but I'm still partial to Rock and Roll.
I hear you there. I mean, it's a really hard choice to make. I mean, you could say that they're all, favorites, in my opinion. But, yeah, I got to go with Stairway myself.
So I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. I usually I get your last thoughts. I don't want your last thought. I want your last word. Give me one word. That's all you got. Give me one word to describe this album.
Legendary.
Oh, I hear you, man. For me, masterpiece. I can't do any better than that. And that is Led Zeppelin IV. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.